Chapter 265 of Shrimadbhagavatam, the best among the three. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Once, the rishis headed by Bhrigu were performing a satra on the banks of the river Saraswati. Narada came to them and he asked them, "Who is the one who is worshipped by you now? For whose sake are you making the offerings? Which of the three Murtis?" "To the best among them," said Bhrigu. After sowing the seed of doubt in their minds, Narada left them. The rishis argued amongst themselves about the qualities of the three Murtis and finally decided that Bhrigu should go and find out by visiting all three of them. He first went to Satyaloka. Since he went there to find out the real nature of the deity, he did not prostrate before him, nor did he speak the customary words of praise. Brahma was angry with Bhrigu, since he did not pay him the respect that was due to him. Bhrigu was his son, and so, with great difficulty, he controlled the anger, which threatened to burst forth. Bhrigu saw what was happening, and without a word, left the presence of Brahma and went to Kailasa, the abode of Mahadeva. Mahadeva rose up from his seat and welcomed Bhrigu with the words, "You are my brother, I welcome you." Bhrigu, however, with the intention of testing him, averted the embrace with which Mahadeva was trying to welcome him and said, "You follow wrong paths." Mahadeva became furious and with his trident uplifted, rushed towards Bhrigu to destroy him. Devi Parvati intervened and pacified him. Bhrigu left Kailasa and went to Vaikunta. There he saw the Lord Narayana lying down on the lap of Lakshmi and resting. Bhrigu went to him and kicked him on the chest. The Lord sprang up at once and fell at his feet. He then said, "You are welcome. Please honor me by accepting this seat. Forgive us for not receiving you at the doorstep. My Lord, your feet must have been hurt by touching my hard chest. Please let me wash your feet and take the tirtha on my head, so that I can be purified." Bhrigu heard the words, and he was thrilled by the nobility with which they were spoken. He knew now who was the best among the three. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamast. Chapter 266 of Shrimad Bhagavatam, Arjuna's Oath. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. There was once a Brahmin in Dwaraka who was singularly unfortunate. His son died the moment it was born. The Brahmin was very unhappy, and so clouded did become his mind because of this misfortune that he began to blame the king for it. He brought the dead form of the child to the palace and placed it on the doorstep. He then said, "My son is dead because the ruler of this country is a sinner. He must be a hater of us, Brahmins, a man with a mind which cheats others, a miser who is ever lost in the pleasures of the world. Such a blot on the name Kshatriya is ruling this kingdom, and that is why this has happened to me." He would not stop there. He said, "We are the subjects of a king who enjoys hurting others, whose character is not good, who is not able to keep his senses under perfect control." A second child was born to him, which also died in the same manner, and again the Brahmin went his tirade against the ruler. This happened 9 times. 9 of his sons died as soon as they were born, and it was painful for all. When his 9th child had died and he was at the doorstep with the child in his arms and the tirade on his lips, Arjuna the Pandava happened to be in Dwaraka. He heard the words of the Brahmin and he said, "O Brahmin, is there no archer in the place where you live? Is there no Kshatriya to protect you? Why do you weep incessantly and unnecessarily? The Yadavas are here, and they are evidently more fitted to be Brahmins and perform yagnas. The country where a Brahmin loses his wife, his child, or his wealth and is unhappy because of that is not ruled by a Kshatriya. The ruler is like an actor who wears the dress of a king but is in reality not a Kshatriya. The very word means one who saves the suffering, and it is up to us to live up to the name. I will now protect your child. I promise to do so. If I fail to keep my word, I will then enter the fire and wash away my sins. The Brahmin, chastened to some extent, said, "This is Dwaraka where great men live. Great heroes like Balarama, Krishna, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, not to mention Satyaki, Kritavarma, and many others. All of them have not been able to do anything for me. How can you succeed where they have failed? You are foolishly obstinate. I have no faith in your words." Arjuna said, "I am not Balarama. I grant you that. Nor am I Krishna, nor his son Pradyumna, nor Aniruddha, his son. But I am Arjuna the Pandava, and I have with me the bow Gandiva, which is famed the world over. I am also a famous archer. Please do not belittle my prowess, with which I have pleased even my Lord Mahadeva. I will fight with Yama and get your child back for you. I promise you, I will do it." After so much talk, the Brahmin thought that he could have faith in the words of Arjuna. He went home with a happy heart. When the time came for his wife to deliver her child, the Brahmin became worried, and he came to Arjuna and said, "Please come and protect my child. Save him from death as you promised to." Arjuna did Achamana with pure water, and with great humility he worshipped Lord Mahadeva. He then took up his Gandiva and he went with the Brahmin. He went to the room where the woman was laid to bed, and with his astras he built a cage round the room. A few moments later was heard the cry of a newborn child. The next moment the child rose up into the sky and vanished from their sight. The Brahmin was so angry with Arjuna that even his grief was forgotten. He said, "I should never have placed my faith in the words of a coward and braggart. Where Pradyumna failed, where Aniruddha could not succeed, where even Balarama and Krishna were not able to do anything, how could this Arjuna be successful? Stupid fool that I was! I placed so much faith in this Arjuna who has spoken a lie." While the Brahmin went on cursing himself, Arjuna carried his weapons, and with the power of his Yogamaya, he went to Samyamani, which was the home of Yama. Samyamani, which was the home of Yama. He could not find the child there. He went to the homes of the Devas who guard the 8 quarters and found that the child was not with any one of them. He was now sure that the child could not be brought back to life. He came back to Dwaraka and built a fire into which he wanted to fall and kill himself, since he had failed to keep his promise to the Brahmin. Krishna stopped him and with proper reasons convinced him that this self-immolation was unnecessary. He told him in secret, "I will show you the sons of this Brahmin. Never insult or blame yourself. This man, who has been cursing me for so long, will soon praise us very profusely." Krishna took Arjuna in his chariot and went towards the west. They crossed the 7 islands and the 7 seas. After a long travel, they reached a very dark region. The 4 horses of Krishna could not see what was in front of them, and they could not pull the chariot. Krishna threw his chakra into the darkness, and when it began to glow like the sun, the horses proceeded further. The brightness of the chakra, by name Sudarshana, was too much for the eyes of Arjuna, and he closed them. When he opened his eyes, he saw the ocean, and they were entering the waters. They travelled in the midst of the waves and under the sea. Arjuna saw a city, and there was a mansion in that city. The city was called Mahakalapura. There, Krishna showed him the fabulous serpent by name Adi Sesha. It was an immense serpent with 1,000 heads, and the jewels on its heads were like so many suns. His eyes were red, and they darted on all sides, with flames rising out of them. He was as large as a mountain of silver, and his neck and tongue were black. It was a sight fascinating enough to hold Arjuna spellbound. He raised his eyes, reclining on the soft bed which Adisesha made for him was the Lord of Lords Narayana, and Arjuna saw him. Om Namo Narayanaaya Namaha. Even as he was watching with awe and a trembling of his limbs, Krishna saluted Narayana, and when he got his thinking power back, Arjuna saluted him hurriedly. So they stood in the presence of the Paramatma, and the Lord spoke to them with a slight smile. He said, Krishna and Arjuna, you have been born into this world to protect Dharma, and you are both my Amshas. I wanted both of you to see me, and that was the reason why I brought the sons of the Brahmins here. You can restore them to him. As for you, make haste and reduce the weight of the earth, burdened as she is by many asuras who have taken the form of kings. You can then come back to me. You are Nara and Narayana. You are Nara and Narayana. You are above the desires of the world and its Maya, and yet you have been born as human beings for the general good of mankind. They prostrated before the Lord once again and went back to the earth with the children of the Brahmin. Arjuna was a chastened man when he came back. He realized that his prowess and strength of his Gandiva and his Astras were all because of the grace of Krishna, and that he was just nothing without Krishna. So, Krishna lived on in this world of men, showing his prowess now and again, behaving like any ordinary mortal now and again, waiting for the fulfillment of the purpose for which he had descended to the earth. Like others, he performed the duties of a Kshatriya, worshipping the Devas and performing yajnas to pacify them, even though he knew himself to be Narayana, for pleasing whom yajnas are performed. He had to set an example to men as to how a man should walk in the world, how he should behave, what actions were good for him, and these he could teach only by behaving like an ordinary mortal. Krishna had no desires, but he could not avoid work, because if he did, people would become lazy and avoid doing duties and desist from work. And so passed the time of waiting for Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnar Pranamast. Chapter 267 of Shrimadbhagavatam. The Curse of the Rishis. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The Asuras who had been born on the earth were being destroyed one by one. Several of them had been killed by Krishna when he was in Vrindavan, and some by Balarama. The others were just waiting to be killed. Something else had to be arranged before that. When Narayana took the form of Krishna at the request of Mother Earth and Brahma, he had asked the Devas to be born as his kinsmen in the house of the Yadavas. Before his time came, Krishna had to see that the entire clan was annihilated. Since they were Devas and since they had the special good fortune of being constantly in the company of Krishna, they could not be killed by anyone else. Krishna thought, even after the war which is to take place, the burden of the earth will still be heavy because of the immense group of the Yadavas, Andakas, Bhojas, Vrishnis, and Dasharhas. They are invincible, and as Kali Yuga, the fourth quarter of time, draws near, they will lose their righteousness, and again the earth will suffer. Even as a bamboo grove is burnt by the fire produced by itself, even so I should be the one to destroy them. I will keep that as my last duty before I go back. He decided that a Brahmin's curse would be the best way for his purpose to be achieved. Krishna was time in the human form, and at his behest, several rishis thought of visiting a holy spot by name Pindaraka. The rishis were Vishwamitra, Asitha, Kanva, Durvasa, Brighu, Angirasa, Kashyapa, Vamadeva, Atri, Vashishta, and Narada. On their way to Pindaraka Kshetra, the rishis thought that they would go to Dwaraka, visit Krishna and Balarama, and then proceed to their destination. They were received with great excitement by Krishna and the other elders. They were asked to stay for a while with them, and the rishis agreed. The palace gardens were kept apart for their use. The youngsters of the house were full of pranks, and they wanted to tease the rishis. They dressed up Samba as a woman. Samba, the son of Krishna and Jambavati. They went to the presence of the rishis. Falling at their feet with humility, they asked them, "Please do us a favor. This woman with the dark eyes is with child, and she is eager to know if she will give birth to a son or a daughter. Woman that she is feeling too shy to approach you herself, and so she asked us to question you." The rishis looked at the youngsters and then at Samba. They became very angry, and they said, "A pestle will be born, and this pestle will be the cause of the destruction of your entire clan." The youngsters were scared out of their wits, and they did not know what to do. They rushed out of the garden, and when they took off the disguise of Samba, they found an iron pestle in his garments. Something had to be done about it, and with worried looks and halting steps, they entered the council hall where the elders had assembled. They placed the pestle at the foot of the throne and stood silent. Krishna saw their scared looks and spoke to them softly and asked them what had been happening which could dampen their spirits so much. Something serious should have happened, or else they would not have come into the assembly hall. Encouraged by his tone, they told them all that had happened. Balarama was furious with them. The old king Ugrasena and Rama ordered the iron pestle to be ground into fine powder and thrown into the sea. Thus, they thought they could avert the fate predicted by the rishis. The pestle was powdered and thrown into the sea. Only one sharp piece was left behind, and it could not be broken up. This was also thrown into the sea, and all the Yadavas breathed freely after this was done, and they could even find it in their hearts to forgive the youngsters for their prank. It was only a natural thing for children to do. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamast. Chapter 268 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Great War. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Time moved relentlessly on. The blind king Dhritarashtra, in his love for his sons, and also because of his avarice, had the Pandava princes banished to the forest on the pretext of a game of dice. They stayed in the forest for 12 years, and another year had to be spent in disguise. This condition also they satisfied by living in the court of Virata, the king of Matsya. When it was all completed, the Pandavas asked their cousins for their kingdom to be returned to them, since they had fulfilled all the conditions of the exile. This request of Yudhishthira was firmly refused by Duryodhana. Several attempts were made by several people to make him give it back, but he would not listen to any of his elders. Yudhishthira asked Krishna to go on a peace mission, since There was no desire in the heart of Yudhishthira to fight. He knew that nothing was beyond the power of Krishna, and if he so desired, he could avert the war which seemed to loom in the immediate horizon. Yudhishthira did not know the purpose of the birth of Krishna, which was for engineering the very war which the gentle Pandava was trying to avert. Krishna went to Hastina, and it was to no purpose, apparently. Yudhishthira was unhappy since war had now become inevitable. The spot chosen for the war was Kurukshetra. The Kauravas, represented by Duryodhana, and the Pandavas, represented by Arjuna, had both come to Dwaraka to ask the Yadavas, and particularly Balarama and Krishna, to help them, to befriend them. Krishna had offered them a choice. On the one hand was the immense Yadava army, and on the other, himself without any weapons. Arjuna, being the younger of the two, was asked to make the first choice. He wanted Krishna, and he wanted Krishna to be his charioteer. Krishna agreed to do so, and the Yadava army was to join the ranks of the Kauravas. Duryodhana, the favorite pupil of Balarama, went to him and asked him to join his side. Balarama said, "Look, the Pandavas are my cousin, and so are you. I do not want to be partial to either of you. Krishna is foolish to take sides. I will not. And again, since Krishna is siding with the Pandavas, I do not want to join you and fight with my brother. I want to be left alone, and you know my affection for you. Go, my dear Duryodhana, and behave like a true Kshatriya." Duryodhana went away disappointed but happy that he had the Yadava army. Balarama felt that he would have no peace of mind if he stayed in Dwaraka when the war was in progress. He therefore told everyone that he was going on a Tirtha Yatra. On the sacred spot named Kurukshetra was fought the war which lasted for 18 days. At the end of the war, there were very few who were left alive. All the great kings, warriors, Maharatikas, Atirathas, archers and heroes shed their blood, and the field was flooded with the blood of the noblest of princes. High-born and proud kings lay on the ground, and there were only women on the field, sitting by the sides of their men and weeping. The Pandavas were rulers of the world. After he had thus established Dharma on the earth, there was very little left for Krishna. He was impatiently waiting for the day when he could go back to his abode. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamast.